Hello, my lovely Purple Cult. Welcome to another episode of the Purple Sessions. For those of you who don't know me, I am your hostess, Anastasia Elliot, alternative singer-songwriter, mental health advocate, and wellness junkie. In this show, I interview fascinating people about creativity, wellness, mental health, and how they inform each other. One of the main things I always try to convey, whether it's in my music or interviews or speeches, or really anything that I do, is that you can turn your greatest struggles and traumas into the things that make you truly uniquely and specially you. In today's interview, I think this person is such an inspiring testament to exactly these things. Andreas Moss is a Swedish singer-songwriter and is self-proclaimed part of the new vanguard of queer artists attempting to deconstruct the pop panorama. He has such an incredible story and one of the warmest souls I've ever met. From winning the green card lottery and coming to America, to being a rising Christian artist, not really living his true self, to the loss of his marriage, the raising of his beautiful child, writing countless songs that you have definitely heard for other artists, and now fully embracing his true self and making some of the catchiest damn pop music I have ever heard. The new stuff is choice. He is just so cool. I hope he inspires you as much as he inspired me. For those of you who don't already, please subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any episodes. There's so many cool people coming up in my show. Thank you for being here for another episode.
Hello.
So happy to have you.
So glad to be here.
I want to start with you just kind of telling everybody from your own words who you are and what you're about.
Well, my name is Andreas Moss. I was born in Sweden, and I've been doing music since I was 6 years old. Music has really just been the only thing I've ever done, and I started off in the Christian world, and my family were evangelists, so we moved to America when I was very young and kind of traveled across the whole world all growing up. And I kind of did the whole thing, like I became a solo Christian artist and did all of the things that I was supposed to do in that world. But when I was like 27 or 28, I had known that I was gay my whole life, and I was married to a woman, and I had, a kid. I had the whole thing that you're supposed to have as a Christian artist, and I just kind of left everything. And I remember I had a moment where I had a show in Houston, and it was like 4,000 people there.
Houston.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Come on, Houston.
Yes.
But so, yeah, I was there, and I was sitting on stage, and I was like, I should feel like I've accomplished a lot, because I worked really hard, but I knew that it was headed to a stratospheric level in that industry, and I just knew that I had to leave. And so I told my manager, I was like, hey, like I'm done, and I canceled all my shows and kind of started over again. And now I'm fully myself, which is the best feeling in the world. And I'm working in the pop industry, which is honestly where I've always wanted to be anyway.
You feel like pop? Like pop just feels like it's just exuding from you?
Oh, for sure. I'm Swedish, so it's very cliche, so of course it is. But yeah, like pop R&B, that's always been my my love. And so I'm very excited to be able to work with the honestly incredible humans as well in the industry. And so yeah, that's the short answer.
That was a very good summary. I have questions about like every single one of those things on my very dorky legal pad.
I love it.
So you're from Sweden.
Yes.
And I read that you guys won the green card lottery.
We did.
Like what?
Yeah.
I actually just found out this was even a thing.
It was crazy.
A few weeks ago, and I was like, wait, what?
And
so
that
your
kind
whole
of
family won the green card?
We did, yep. So that kind of solidified my parents, because they felt like God had called them to America. And so they applied in, I think, 89 or 88, like when I was born. And then in 91, we got it. So we got a letter from the president at the time, and it was like the green cards were in the envelope. Like it was, and I think it was like 40 million people. It was one of the biggest lotteries ever.
Wow.
And they chose very few. So they felt like, well, obviously we're supposed to be there. So it was major culture shock. I don't remember because I was too little, but we moved to Florida from Sweden, and then we kind of just moved back and forth.
That's a big change.
Huge change, yeah. So I just kind of grew up in both places tandem. We would go back and live there for a little bit. We would come back and live here.
Nice.
So I kind of got both cultures my whole life, which has been really interesting. And I'm happy that I've been able to have both, to see things from different perspectives.
Sweden's on my wants to travel to list.
You have to go. It's a beautiful country. I don't know if I'll ever live there again, but I love being there. And it's really nice to be able to speak your language. And
I feel like everyone from Sweden is like insanely talented. Is that a thing?
No. Just like anything. I mean, there are very talented people from there.
I told my guitarist yesterday that I sent him your song, and I was like, I'm interviewing him tomorrow, and he's like, oh my god, I loved it in the first 5 seconds. Aww. And I was like, he's from Sweden, and he's like, figures, everyone from Sweden's talented. And I was like, I feel like you're right. Like all the songwriters I meet from Sweden, I'm like, they're really insanely talented, especially in pop. In
music, yeah, it's a very special, there's something in the water when it comes to music for sure. But
are they big like music consumers there? Like is it?
Yeah, it is, but it's also like, I think there's a mentality in America, people are very, very confident in themselves no matter what. So they'll just be like, I'm a singer, and then they're not. So in Sweden, it's the opposite. So like if someone tells you like, I play bass, then you know that they're excellent at bass. So it's a lot more straightforward. Nice. So yeah, so the people that aren't good, they don't say that they are. Yeah, exactly.
I like that. In your bio, you say that you're part of the new vanguard of queer artists attempting to deconstruct the pop panorama. Mm-hmm. What do you want to deconstruct in pop? Like,
I think pop has just been, or just in general, music has just been a reflection of what's going on in the world always. And, you know, I'm seeing so much now, like Lil Nas was a really, really big, for the gay community especially, because he was so fearless in putting that kind of content out, and then people realized, oh, it's sellable to be gay now. But more than that, I think that it's just a season of, or I want to see a season of people just being themselves. And I think that that's what's so beautiful. And there are so many people, like when I grew up, there was no one that I could look up to like that really. And I mean, I was also stuck in the Christian, I was only allowed to listen to Christian music. I didn't. I had these cargo pants.
Really no one, or at least nobody that was being honest. I'm sure there's plenty that are actually in there.
Right. So I think the industry is in a very big deconstruction moment right now. And I'm seeing
kind of the whole world is. Like I think like everything's kind of shifting towards more authenticity, especially
which
as
I love.
you go in social media. Like there's kind of a rejection to things that are maybe
fake
more
shit.
buttoned up. Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, and so I'm just very grateful to be a part.
Perfect time for your blossoming.
It is so perfect, yeah. No, but I think that more than anything, it's just the industry has been, everything that people have heard is very true. It's been very cutthroat and very ugly, and it's because, again, it's a reflection of what's happened in the world, and it's just really powerful people who have been put in power because of nepotism or whatever it is, and it's being run by people that aren't even really creatives. And so we as songwriters and artists have to sit in a boardroom with people that could never write a song in their life and tell you that it's not good. What would our industry
look like if it was actually run by creatives? Like, I can't even imagine.
It would be amazing. And that's where it's headed. And I think that I've really got to spend a lot of time in the LA community of writers and stuff the last, like, really 5 years pretty strongly. And there's just such an era of collaboration, and there's so many of us, and we're happy for each other, and we want each other to win. And I think that has been my favorite part. Is I've always been a collaborator, and I don't look at my stuff and go, I did this. Like, my team did this. We all did this.
I actually don't really enjoy working alone that much. Like,
no, me neither.
I will some, but I prefer to like start something, and then I'll be like, all right, now I want to like bring some minds in on this, because I don't know, I feel like for me, my best work is always when I know what my strengths and weaknesses are, and like I'm real honest about that. Like when I talk to people and I'm like, so are you stronger in, you know, melody or lyric or like music? And when they're like, I do it all, I'm like, yeah, but what are you best at? Because you're definitely better at one than you are at the other. Because when then I'll write with people, I'll be like, you're not. You're
like, I'll tell you which one.
But I love getting to pair myself with people who are like strong where I'm weak, and I feel like that's where my best work comes from. Or even just like, this is my like big metaphor for collaborating. You can do it alone or you can do it together, kind of like sex versus masturbation. You can get to the same end goal and it can still be great, but like the energy that you can cultivate when you're with somebody else, and when you're like combining many life experiences and like many creative minds.
That's a great example.
It's another level.
It definitely is. And I didn't co-write for a long time because, and I can absolutely sit and write a song by myself, and I love doing that. Yeah. But like all my Christian albums, 5 of them, it was just me and my brother.
Wow.
But then my first real collaboration was with a writer in town called Sam Tenez.
Yeah.
And I was nervous about that because I was like, I had really just never done it like that. And I was like, I know what I want and blah, blah, blah. But that was such a great moment. And that's when I really started to collaborate a lot and learned so much from the collaboration process.
That was a really good person to have your first collaboration with.
Such a good, he's great.
Experienced.
So experienced.
He's experienced.
He's so experienced. But he's also like literally been the most supportive. We wrote Stuck in My Feelings, which was like my first radio single. And that was our first song that we ever wrote together. And we've done so many now. And he's just been such a supportive person. Like literally just yesterday, he's texting me like, let's do this. And
that's awesome.
So he's just, I've been really lucky. I've met shit people, but I would say that 95% of the people that I've been working with have been incredible in the Christian industry and the pop industry.
That's really lucky. I feel like a lot of the creators are incredible. You kind of don't really get, I think, very far if you're not.
No, you have to.
Especially in collaboration.
Yeah, it's really crazy when
that.
No, you can't, and it's crazy when you meet people that have such a mentality of selfishness and about like there are so many things that like literally make my ears bleed, like things like nice guys finish last and all that stuff. I'm like, no, they don't. I'm like, somebody just made that rule at some point and decided that if you're nice, then you're weak, and that is ridiculous.
It is very ridiculous.
Because kindness, I think, is our superpower. And I think that, and I think it's so cliche, but like love, I think is such an important thing. Love and kindness are huge things. And I think that it should be a part of our everyday lives. We should be thinking more about how we're affecting other people with what we do and what we say. And I think that a lot of the times we can only see ourselves. And the only reason I know that is because I've been in that space of just seeing things from my perspective and just being so offended by this and by that. And that changes when you start to actually, because compassion and empathy are two different things. Compassion is just looking at somebody and going, oh, like, I'm sorry they're going through that. But empathy is putting yourself in that person's shoes.
Which is kind of what we were talking about before the camera turned on. I think it's when you start going through that really dark shit, that's where you can kind of like get that more observational viewpoint where you're kind of out of it all, and you can, even if someone's being like a total shithead, you can kind of put yourself in their shoes and be like, oh, I kind of understand what they're going through. This is what they're bringing to the table, their traumas, their projections, and that's not gonna affect this here.
Exactly. No, 100.
Empathy.
And it's
a lot of work, but
it's a lot of work, but it's so worth it.
It's so worth it. It is worth everything.
Yeah.
Tell me about your name, because I know that your real name is
Jonathan Tulane. Yeah. So I just, the really honest reason was because I had so much attached artistry-wise to that name, to Jonathan Tulane. So I was like, I really wanted my switch over to Andreas Moss to just, I just wanted and I wanted to do that alone. I wanted to, not alone, like I had a team, but I didn't want those fans to come along with me at that point. I just wanted to completely start fresh, and I did. And they didn't even find me until like 2 years after.
What was that like when they found you? Were they disappointed or angry? Were they like...
It was half and half, and it was traumatic the way that they found out, because there was a friend of mine that I had known in the Christian industry that he had texted, and like we had been friends for a long time, and he knew me very well and deeply, and I had left Christian, and he hadn't really said much about it, but he asked me if I had a new song, and I was like, sure, like, and I sent it to him, and I didn't hear anything from him for like 2 days, and I was like, okay, whatever, he probably didn't like it, whatever. But then like this big article came out that he wrote, and at first I saw the article and it was going viral, and I was like, ugh, I'm like, he wrote this because of that song, but I did not for a second think that he would put me in the article. And so when I was reading it, he had this whole section that was to me and saying that I left for fame and money and that it's working, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I left fame and money. I did not leave for fame and money. So it was, I was making a lot of money, and it was going very well, but I had to be myself.
What did you feel when you read that?
I was just angry, I think, because it was just not his place to do that, and I just thought that was very unfair. But it's also like a relief. It's just like, okay, fine. Like, people know now. But I got like thousands of messages in my mailbox, and half of them were of support, and half of them were like, kill yourself, faggot, you know? So it was just a lot at once. But I was also expecting that. And those messages still come on a daily basis of like somebody just like 2 weeks ago wrote me like a 6-page poem about how I was gonna burn in hell and how just please like come back to Jesus. And I'm just like, I understand that they're coming from, they genuinely believe that they're trying to save me, but it just, for me, I've gotten to a place now where I'm okay with it, but it used to make me so mad because it was just still trauma that I hadn't dealt with. Yeah. And it's just, I mean, you grow up your whole life being told that you have no value, you're unworthy. The only thing that gives you value is God. And
I think at the time that you were going through that, there probably wasn't a lot publicly to look up to of people that have been through that. Like now you get to kind of be that guidebook for people who are going through that right now.
Yeah, and like I came out, and this was on purpose, I came out in a Billboard article, but I was still married to a woman.
Nice way to come out.
It was a nice way to come out, yeah. But I mean, I sat and talked to the author, who was incredible, loved him. But we talked for 4 hours and everything was on record, so I didn't really think, I'm very open. So I didn't know what stuff he was going to put in there, but he definitely brought up a lot of things in that article that not even my ex-wife knew. Wow. So I was just the villain for 2 years, and I had to console my family and people because no one asked me if I was okay, or I just had to they're like, this is hard for us. It's just like, and I understand, but it's just like, what about like me in this situation? But I think it was okay. I knew that I had to go through that time, and now it's completely different. Like it's the opposite.
I mean, leaving not only like a blossoming career in Christian music, but also a marriage and like an entire life and identity and everything you had built for so long took like incredible mental strength and resilience. Like how did you know you were not only ready to do that, but what did you have in place in kind of your mental health toolbox to get you through those times? Because I'm sure there were real dark days.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think you ever can really be prepared for something like that. I knew that it was going to be hard, but you still have to go through all those painful feelings of rejection and all of the horrible things that people say to you. But I think that I just made a decision. I remember I sat down with my dad and I said, like, I'm getting divorced, I'm coming out. And
was it just like you couldn't take it anymore?
No, yeah, but it was also like I had a confidence, because I was like, I think the way that I am, I'm a very decisive person. So once I made that decision that that's what I was going to do, and me and my ex had a mutual conversation, and she was aware of me being gay. For most of our marriage, it was more, but we just viewed it in a different way. We were going to pray it away, and it was a struggle and all that stuff. So I think the biggest guilt that I felt was what she went through as well. And I'm very proud of her. Me and her are very good friends now, and I'm very proud of her that she was able to get past that as well, because she had to deal with a lot of feelings of rejection and those types of things, and I think we finally came to the conclusion that it's not either of ours fault. We were both just victims to a situation. Yeah. But I think that was one of the biggest things that got me through it, was us deciding to be friends. And we definitely had our moments, like everybody. But for our daughter's sake too, like we always want to show that we are kind to one another. And now it's like, she's also an amazing singer. So like one of the first things, I just recently became an independent artist, which has been a scary new season, but the first thing that I'm going to put out is a duet with her.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's so cool. So we did a cover of one of my friend's songs, Chloe Tang. She just put a song out like last week, and it was just such a perfect song. And I asked Anna, I was like, hey, like we should do this, and really she killed it too. So she's so talented, and so I think that was a lot of things to answer that question, but it was there was dark moments, but I think if you start speaking life over yourself, and that sounds cliche, but I during that time, I would wake up in the morning and I would feel like shit, and I didn't know why. And I started to realize that as soon as I had consciousness, I was saying, you're awful, you're a monster, you're blah, blah, blah. I was saying these things to myself. And it wasn't that I was trying to, I just think that that's the narrative that had been fed to me. So I just kept, so as soon as I started like becoming aware of that, I would change that in my mind.
The self-awareness piece, when you're like making a big life shift or decision like that, is so fascinating, because it's almost like you get like some kind of download where you're like, this isn't working.
Right.
And it causes you to really shift how you see everything and how you can analyze yourself. At the beginning of COVID, I broke off an engagement of 8 years we were together.
Wow.
Like, I was a stepmom.
Wow.
It was like a really tough decision, but I mean, I have nothing but respect for him, but it was a situation that I just couldn't take anymore. I couldn't stand it anymore. And we, didn't have the nicest break, but once I decided, like, I can't do this anymore, I started reading back through my daily journals and stuff, and I was writing every morning, like, I'm miserable, I can't, like, what if I tried this today? Would this change something or this?
Wow.
And when I started reading that, and I was like, man, for years, every morning, I've just been writing, like, and ignoring that inner voice, ignoring myself, being like, oh, I'm gonna shut my journal and I'm gonna go have a happy day. And I did, a lot of the time I would always say everything's 80% great and 20% not, but like, that 20%, no, it's like, but once I made that decision to like cut off and leave, now I've like met myself in such a new place, and I feel like I know myself so much more, and like have grown into like, a new person and like the person I'm supposed to be. So I think that self-awareness piece, when you're like, oh, like, what you doing, Anastasia?
Yeah, what are you doing? And I just literally shifted, and I still do this to this day. When I start to feel a certain type of way, I just keep telling myself in my head, or even verbally, like, you're worthy, you're valuable, you're enough.
Affirmations are a huge part of that.
Huge. Manifestation, too, is huge. And just, I think that people don't realize it's not, I think that I used to think that it was only if you spoke things out verbally, but even the thoughts that we think are so powerful and can shape a lot of our futures. And looking at my life now and the next season that I have, there is so much good coming from my life. And
because you're living in alignment with yourself.
Exactly.
Not in resistance.
Yeah, and I also have just really, I think that my entire purpose was wrapped around Christianity, and the only reason we were here was to bring other people to heaven so we could worship God for 24/7. And like, that just sounded so terrible to me. And like, I did it because I thought that was the right thing to do. But when I finally realized, like, wow, I'm actually in control of my own destiny. And I feel like I'm the type of person that I feel like I am, like, what gives me joy in life is just helping people. And I think that there are a few people that are like that. I feel like I'm a healer, and I just want, like, I want people to come and just, I want to hug them and embrace them and accept them. And, in LA, like, people know, it's starting to become like, people know that if they need something, they can come to me, or if they're, drunk on the side of the road and they need help or need someone to drive them, I'll be there. Like, that's what I want to be. And I've always been that person. But now I think I just finally like accepted that role for myself, and I'm like, oh, that's why I'm here. So I feel tremendous purpose. I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I have no idea. I hope that my life can be as long as it possibly can. I love being here, but I'm also like, I'm not worried about the future. I'm just trying to be in the present and be in now, and just be a good person. Like, it's hard to make that decision sometimes for people, but I think that I feel so much better treating people with respect and kindness, and and trying to be integral with my decisions. And it's crazy how much you change in your life, because from 10 to 14 to 20 to now, like, it's just so different, and you grow as a human being. And I'm just happy that in my mid-30s that I feel like I'm just now really starting to live. I don't even know, I knew that I lived before, and I had an amazing childhood. My parents are very loving and wonderful, and even though they're very wrapped up in that world, they are just very lovely people. So I still was raised by wonderful humans.
What was their reaction to your big change? Were they supportive? And were they?
I mean, no. They've been supportive. I mean, they were very supportive about the divorce, and even my music career. They don't listen to my songs because I've told them not to, because I know that it would just upset them. But they're still very, like, they always tell me that they're very proud of me. We don't really talk about the gay thing. That's not a topic of conversation. And it was heartbreaking for me, but now I'm just like, that's their choice. If I have given them the option. Yeah, and if they don't want to be a part of that part of my life, I'm going to be living my best life. And so it's their loss, honestly. And I hope that they can change their minds, because it's really not that hard to pick apart what it says in the Bible about those things. And if you just look at history and fact, it just falls apart really quickly. So, and I think that these days, like, I don't really know a Christian that doesn't affirm me or accept me. It's a very, very old way of thinking.
Things are very shifting. What is your relationship with God and Christianity now? Has it shifted?
It's the opposite of what it was. It's gone. It's gone. Yeah. I really don't. I think my idea of God is, as of now...
Have you come to the energetic side?
Oh, yeah.
Welcome. We're happy to have you.
No, yeah. So I feel very much that God is in everything, and God is a consciousness more than it is this like man sitting up there punishing us. Like I feel it's so crazy when I look back at what we were taught, how we could be so manipulated to believe that because the God that they believe in is very abusive and narcissistic, and it's crazy when you step back from that. Like, why did I accept that? Like, why did I accept a God that would say, do this, 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 and this, or else you're going to be tortured for eternity? I'm like, that's a very abusive, and then it's like, worship me, give me all the glory for everything. And it's just like, what a horrible, that was very hard for me to say. It's not love, and then you call it love. Mm-hmm. So then you think that you're this worthless piece of trash, and you're like, please make me worthy just so that I can worship you forever. It's just like, it was a very, like, but when I was in it, that just felt so right, because I was taught that that's what was right. And when I really started to figure out, love for myself and also love for other people's beliefs. Mm-hmm. My boyfriend is Muslim, and he's very deconstructed Muslim. So because religion is something that I have a hard time with, but I really respect human beings. So
I think
we had discussions.
Respect and empathy for anybody's beliefs.
Exactly. As long as it's not hurting people.
Like, usually no one's ever set. There are plenty of people that I guess are set in their ways forever, but I think a lot of people now, the more exposure they get to different belief systems, like there is kind of what's fascinating to me actually is the picking and choosing, like where you'll have people where we're like, oh, we'll take these parts of our religion, but we're gonna like ignore the rest of it. Just like
what they needed to be. And it's been really great because I've been dating my boyfriend now for a year, and it's just been really interesting having those conversations with him, because from the beginning, I would ask very targeted questions to see like, what's he going to answer? Mm-hmm. And his whole mentality, he is the loveliest human being. He just exudes love and kindness, and he's very like slow to anger, and we can have conversations about things and we get over it quick. It's not something, and so we want the exact same thing. So even though he technically culturally considers himself a Muslim, mm-hmm. and I consider myself just maybe I don't even know, agnostic, maybe. Because I'm not going to say definitively anything, because I don't. Mm-hmm. I think that's the problem. We don't know. Yeah. So for me, I've just latched on to, I believe that the idea of God, that me being kind to you is me being kind to myself. Mm-hmm. Even like me being like not. This was such a dumb thing. It's not dumb, but it seems dumb. But it was like a few months ago where there was like a spider in my house, and usually I would just kill it because that's what you do. But I was like, why do I need to? And so I just like brought it outside instead, because I'm like, they're important. And then I was kind of like, that's interesting. Like, why did I? And it's because I've started to value life maybe more. Yeah. And I look at nature and trees and the wind. Like, I almost feel like when the wind blows in my face, it's like myself. Like it's we're all this. Taking care of each other means taking care of ourselves. Like, we're all extensions of each other. That's how I really view it. And that, to me, that sounds like love. Mm-hmm. That sounds like love to me. And Christianity's God, what they've created, to me sounds like man. And it sounds like control and manipulation. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I think that a lot of people get so offended when you speak against it, like so offended. And I remember getting so offended. But it's just one of those things that I
think when you're that triggered by anything, it's time to look at yourself and your beliefs, and that's what I hope everything starts to move towards, because I think right now we've been pushed to have so much division, especially the last few years, politically, spiritually. Like, there's so much divisiveness, and I feel like I'm always the person that's like, I sit in the middle of most things, because I can see positives and negatives and, good things and bad things from every side, every area. And I think when you can get to that place where you're like, I don't belong to a side, I'm not going to identify in this group or that group and hate this entire group of people, hate this entire group, you have your power back at that point, and you're no longer.
And when you create just two-way, like this country, like just two ways of doing things.
I need to restart our camera.
Do it.
All right. Yeah.
Great. No, but when you only have two ways of doing things, I mean, it's just like that's not ever going to work.
Yeah,
so
no.
it's a very silly system to do it that way. I will just always err on the side of kindness and human rights. And so the way that I view things like that, I just don't, it's taken a while for me because if anything can take me from 0 to 100, it's unfairness and people not like and people that don't have any idea about, like, for example, being gay, and there are people that don't want me to have rights, and you don't even know, and you're basing that on an old verse in a 2,000-year-old book, and that's not, I'm sorry, but that's not something that I'm going to live under. And it's just, and so when it gets to that point, like that's, I just follow, I don't even care about titles about things, like what you were saying, but it's just, it's more for me, I just choose where love is and where kindness is, and that's where I'm gonna be.
Wish love ruled the world.
Yes, it should, and it can.
You're right, it can. I think a lot of people want that.
Yeah.
I think musicians, especially songwriters, are more prone to mental health challenges because we spend all of our time thinking about and being like immersively in touch with our emotions, and we don't have the luxury of numbing out for long, or we would kind of be shitty artists.
Right.
What is your relationship with mental health like, and how you create?
Well, and I think that one of the biggest reasons why, honestly, we deal with that is because of the way the industry is set up, because they've created such a value system based off of whether or not you have a cut with this artist, and then all of a sudden, once you get to a certain level, then you have to treat that person differently, and how dare you speak to that person that way, and like, I have never dealt well with hierarchies in people. When I meet somebody that I really respect as a musician, I view them as a human being. I don't think, oh, you're Beyonce, so therefore you're better than me or more valuable than me. Absolutely not. The work she's done is phenomenal. I really respect her. But I always, when I approach people, even if they're a celebrity or whatever, it's just, I'm like, who are you as a person? Who are you as a human? So mental health for me, and like music is my therapy, truly. And it's where I've always been able to outlet myself and speak about things. And if you go back to my old Christian albums, like both of the albums that did really well, they're really me talking about being gay and struggling on what to do
really
in that
snuck
situation.
It up on them.
I did, and it's funny because the two biggest songs that I have on Spotify from that season are both very clearly about that. One's called Jekyll and Hyde, which is very much about, you know, like I'm literally saying, I'm saying Jekyll and Hyde, that's what my name is, because there's two of me. Like, and then the other one is called Hat Trick, and that's literally talking about I'm fooling all of you because I'm actually something else. So it's like, it's crazy. So it was, I think I just threw that whole season, and because I was writing a lot by myself, I was really just like diving into like, what am I feeling? And there's one song that still breaks me to hear. It's called Torches, and it was very much about that. And it's talking about like being like a part of a witch hunt and people coming after me, and I don't really, you know, and I was never able to hide my gayness because I was more feminine, and especially when I was younger, I was just very exuberant in my expressions, and so I would try to like masculine myself up, which is just so sad in general. But I think music was just there to always save me.
So your pain has been very inspiring to you. It's not a block. Like
it's not a block. No.
That's what you work with.
I can't say that when I'm in it, I can't really do anything.
Yeah.
I can't work.
I
but
have to kind of get past it a little.
Yeah, but I can reconnect to it really easily. And I remember there's a song that's not out yet that I wrote about my divorce, and I had never really talked about it because it was the right decision. It was not bad, but I think that it would be silly of me to just be like, it was great and so easy.
Big decision like that. That's right.
It's a person you've been with every day for 11 years, and then that is the mother of your child as well, who I love more than anything. So it's like, it was really painful because she was always a really good friend and a close friend of mine. So, and we still are, which I'm so glad that we were able to keep that. But it was just, that was very difficult to transition from. And I remember writing this song called Okay to Cry. And the producer was just me and this producer, Cinematic, in LA. And he started playing this track.
I've worked with him.
Oh, he's the best. He's
awesome.
My favorite.
We wrote a really strange song.
Ooh, I love it.
It's really cool.
I didn't realize you knew him. No, he's probably my closest collaborator at this point. We've done like 80 plus songs together.
Yeah. If we're talking about the same person, he's real interesting.
Is he from Nigeria?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We worked in New York actually when he was
he was in New York. Yeah.
Yeah,
He just
I'll
won
have
a
to play you
Grammy.
the demo. Really?
Yeah, he just
That's
won a Grammy. I'm so
amazing.
proud of him. Yeah. So we wrote this song, and he also, you know, like we both just connected to this story. And for me, I've never done a song where I did my vocal literally in between sobbing
Wow.
and writing this song, and I wrote it in like 20 minutes, and it was very. And that was when I really realized, and now I listen back to that, and it's still one of my favorite songs I've ever written, and also my vocal performance is my favorite because I was like, wow, I was really in it, and you can feel it. And that's so important because so many people like go and retrack vocals. I've never done that. Every vocal you hear from on anything is the first one. It's the scratch vocal.
I love that.
So because I just think that you can't emulate.
Capture the lightning in the bottom.
Yeah, you can't emulate what you're feeling in that moment when you're writing that, and I think that's really important. And sometimes you have to recut, but I think for me, I've always just kept the first time because it just.
That was going to be a later question. What's the name of the last thing that you released?
The last thing I released was it was a song called "Fucking Great."
The one before that.
By Your Love.
Yes.
Oh, By Your Love.
By Your Love.
That was my last
solo
solo
notes,
song.
but it's in a few pages.
Yeah.
I was like going to bump this question up to earlier. I love By Your Love. I'm obsessed with it. I feel like your new music, all the stuff you're releasing now, like I hear the rawness of your voice and like I can feel you in your songs, like
Thank you.
more than your previous stuff. Like it's all great, but like there's like a new level of artistness and like essence of you that I feel like is really, really in your vocals, especially. Like you can hear just what you're putting into the work now.
You know what's crazy is By Your Love, we recorded, that was Sam Tenez as well, me and him wrote that together.
Love that song.
And that was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So I actually was in it at that time. So I was married still. I was dealing.
Wow.
I had just left the Christian industry. That was one of the first songs I did after I left. So it was very much that. But then it took 4 years to release it, and we did the music video. And my music video was just me saying goodbye to the church. The whole song is me talking to the church and saying that I just can't. Like I can't do this anymore.
I freaking love that song.
Thank you.
It's so good.
Thank you.
I've jumped around so much on my questions. Who are your biggest songwriting influences, and what is your process when songwriting? Do you like to write, like for me as a writer, I'm way more music and melody in what I enjoy about the process. So like I build tracks and write the melodies first, and then I kind of go for the lyrics. But I'm such a visual person, I kind of have to backdoor my way into lyrics by making videos and visuals in my head, and then I describe them to get to the lyrics. So
always, if I see a music video in my head, when I listen to it, then I know that it's a good song.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and it's for me, I am very visual as well, but I don't think I've written maybe one song that started with lyrics. It always is melodies first, and then the lyrics after that. So, and I'm very decisive in everything in my life. So when I'm writing a song, people are like, you write so fast. It's because there's 10 million melodies you can make, but I'm like, if I listen to the track and the melody is coming and it sounds great, I'm like, great. And then I just go with that and move on. And as for my greatest songwriting influences, I think my first biggest icon for songwriting was Brooke Fraser. And she writes amazing worship songs, but her solo stuff was so poignant, and her lyrical ability to really say things so powerfully was one of the first. I remember she's one of the only people I've been to like 3 or 4 shows because I loved her energy and who she was. I've never met her in my life. I just think she's phenomenal. And then John Bellion is another person that I think when I listened to The Human Condition from beginning to end, and he had also been involved in the church, and there was so much rawness in what he was saying, and I would listen to these songs over and over and over and just be like, I feel so seen. And I think that those kinds of things I've always wanted to, like, I talk about what my songs are about, but I also want people to listen to them and get what they get out of it.
I really hate saying what my songs are about. Like when people ask me that in interviews, they'll be like, I'll give you the gist, but when I write a lyric, I want it to be able to be read 4 different ways, 4 different interpretations.
And it will,
like,
regardless of us saying what our version is about, it's always going to connect. And I think that it's interesting for me when I've listened to a song that I really love and then I hear what the actual meaning is, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting, but it didn't take away from what I get out of it, you know? And so I think that I've always wanted to just make music that where people feel heard and seen, and they can see themselves in it, you know?
Something cool that happened to me, because this album I'm putting out right now, I've had for, it's been a 10-year process, is songs I wrote a while ago either changed meanings for me, like people always be like, how are you still in love with the songs? And I'm like, because they've grown with me, they've changed with me. And sometimes I was writing about things that I didn't even realize I was writing about, and now looking back on them, I'll be like, man, I see now what I was writing about. Or like, it was just like, I was writing from here, but like, I didn't really know what it was about, or I was thinking that I was making almost characters in my head, or like coming up with stories, but now looking back on it and knowing what I was going through in life, I'm like, damn, now I know what my record's about.
Right. That happens to me every time.
Right?
By Your Love, when we wrote that song, it was literally about sleeping with an escort. And me saying, because I remember I had hired an escort once, and like there was a season where I was doing that a lot. And I remember like we had these passionate moments that I paid for, but these passionate moments, and then as soon as it was done, it was over. And I felt so guilty because I would have conversations with these escorts, and now I'm friends with so many people that work in the sex industry, and I realized they've been so misunderstood, number one, and there's so much stuff that I didn't realize until I really started to speak to these people, and I felt so guilty because I was like, you're worth so much more than that, and I don't want to feel like I'm buying your love, but at the same time, there are so many people that love doing it, and they want to be in it, and that's great. Like, I think people should absolutely do that. I think sex is a beautiful thing, and I hate that it's been turned into something so negative, and so I fully I respect sex work so much, and for me, I don't know if I would be able to do it, but I think that it's beautiful that and a lot of them are so kind and beautiful, and you have a great experience. But it's interesting because By Your Love started off like that, but then I realized, oh wow. When I realized that when I was speaking to the church, I was like, oh wow, that's what it's about.
Right?
Yeah.
I seriously, almost every one of my songs or photos or just any concepts I have for anything, it is always later that I look back at it and be like, damn, that's what I was doing. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
That was, it was coming from my essence or my subconscious, but it's so cool.
Yeah, I know, it's so cool, yeah. And so it's very rare actually, a lot of the times I just feel the right words that I'm supposed to say, and then it kind of comes later what it's all about, but I love that. So I'm the same way. I even listen back to my Christian albums, and they have such different meaning now, and I'm very proud of those albums, because I honestly was not being inauthentic. I was really putting, I was still putting all my heart into it.
And that's a really cool thing to be able to say.
It is, because I would hate to look back. I mean, my first two albums that will never see the light of day, thank God. I don't love those, but the ones that were that started with the label, those were good.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Do you have advice for young people that may be struggling with being queer and not being in situations where they can be their full selves, whether it's being raised in religion or just around people that maybe are not all that accepting?
I think the biggest thing is just realizing that other people's opinion of you literally does not matter. Even people like our parents or our family members who we feel should be the ones that protect us the most, their opinion of us doesn't matter. And the only thing that we can do is pursue our own happiness. And we deserve that. All of us deserve that, because all of us are worthy. We're not unworthy. We're valuable, and we're worthy and deserving of love and of acceptance. And so as hard as it is, we just have to, when other people can't love us properly, we have to love ourselves properly.
And that takes practice. It's not an immediate thing. I think it's something you have to constantly be reminding yourself.
Yeah.
When I was interviewing Rob Mack a few days ago, the happiness coach, in his book, there's a part where he says, if there's one thing that made a huge difference in his shift to happiness, it was stopping to care about other people, what they want from you, what their definitions of you, and questioning every decision, every thought you have, every thing, to be is this mine? Is this, the choice that I want to make? Is this what I think of myself? Or is this, things that I've grabbed? Which is tough, because it's kind of human nature to care about what others think. It's not easy to, I think, disconnect from.
And one of the big things too is when you start to realize that every single thing is made up. Every construct that we think, having a massive career by 30 and having children and a family and all that stuff, are just constructs that have been created. Those are all not real. It's just something that we've been taught is important and what we're supposed to do with our lives. But when you start to realize that none of those things are actually, those are just made up, and you can kind of create your own path, and that's amazing. Some people don't, love having kids. Some people don't want kids. Some people don't want to be married. Some people are queer, some people are completely straight, and that's the beauty of this world, is that we're all so different and individuals. And I think that the biggest thing that we can do, and hopefully where the world is headed, is just like, we just respect other people and their decisions. My biggest thing is like, as long as the one thing I can't respect is hatred and hurting other people, and with your actions or with the things you say, that I don't respect at all. I think that and
it's the lowest vibe you can be on. It's the lowest energy.
It really is. And for me, like, this sounds like a sermon title, which I love, but I always think about the root and the fruit, because if I'm
gonna write a song called The Root
and the Fruit, yeah.
The Root and the Fruit.
Because every time I not every time, I try, when I'm gonna say something or react to something, I start to think, is this what's the root of this reaction? Is it bitterness? If it's bitterness, then the fruit's going to be bitterness. So I think that when you can operate out of love, and if the root is level-headedness and self-control, and you've thought about what you're going to say and what you're going to do and why, then the fruit is usually really, really good in that situation. So I think that we don't think about that a lot, because we're very reactive. And just like the 7 habits.
The healing, I feel like when you start to heal yourself, that is one of the first signs, I think, that you're making great progress, is when you become more responsive than reactive. And I definitely felt that in myself. I feel like I used to be very much a fiery Italian Greek. Like, I remember screaming a lot, and like I can't even I'm like, who is that? Because I actually have a hard time getting angry now, and I could maybe stand to get angry more. It takes a lot for me too. Yeah. But yeah, that kind of responsive versus reactive thing is, like, if you're a very reactive person, there's a reason. There's something sparking in there. There's a lot going on that you need to look at. It's time for some therapy. Over time, I feel like color has saturated your project so much more. Like, when you go back and look earlier on, you're more colorless, and as you kind of like get towards the newer stuff, color is like huge in your visuals. Do you think that that's a reflection of the growing happiness you felt from becoming more fully yourself?
Yes, I've never actually thought about that, but absolutely yes.
There you go. There's some analysis of your work.
Because one of my first big album in the Christian industry, the cover is literally like half my face is blue and the other face is like, it's very dark. It was very dark. My Christian stuff was very dark. My last Christian album was science fiction. That was a lot lighter, but it still had a lot of dark elements to it. And it's interesting because I've changed my hair a lot. I've always felt like I never got to do that much when I was younger. So I think a lot of that came in my later 20s, where I was just like, I'm free, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. And that felt really, really amazing. And one of my favorite seasons, honestly, I did this little like gay rap section of my career, and it was really fun. And I love those songs so much still. And I think for me, like, standing and just literally talking about sucking dick in a song was awesome, and it felt so empowering. And it's funny that people are like, you're so inappropriate, but it's like, it felt amazing to talk about that. Why? Because somebody decided that it was.
Why?
And Grok And so I really enjoyed just being able to be fully free. And like, in my second song, Kudos, I had like a really big gay porn star in it whom I loved, like the sweetest human in the world. And so it was just like, it was just like a real shake-up of everything that I have been taught. And when you realize that the world is so much bigger, and honestly the world is so much kinder than you think it is as well, if you surround yourself with the right people. And it's funny that, you know, people have this mentality that a sex worker or a person who says the word fuck or a person who's gay or gay porn star, that automatically those people are bad. But it's like, there are bad people in every part of the world, no matter what. So like, and for me, unfortunately, majority of the bad people that I've met have been religious. And so that's not saying, because there are so many lovely, like, I have many Christians in my life that are just wonderful. Cinematic being one of them. He's a really, like, he's just so love-based, and that's his view of God and Jesus, and I really appreciate that. Like, so I completely respect that, because it's not about hurting other people. It's not about condemnation. It's just about acceptance. And I think that's, if God is anything, it's that, you know?
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I love the use of color in all of your stuff.
Thank you.
Tell me about your process of making music videos. You and I are both very visual artists, and the visuals are very important, and the direction and the editing. Like, I fucking love video editing. It's my favorite. Like,
all of my music videos except for one that have ever been out, I've edited myself. So I really love that. It's one of my favorite things, and I think that also, like, I've had co-directors many times, and they've just been very respectful of my creative vision and what I want, and that'll never stop. And now I can't talk much about it, but there's a really, really big project that's coming up with me, and for the first time, just being able to actually have budget and to do the things that I really want to do visually,
Yes.
and I'm very excited about that, because I've just had a lot of vision for a long time. I've had a lot of failed things because I just didn't have the budget or the support to do it, but I've had so many ideas so long, so like I'm going into a season now where I'm like, I'm free, I have full control to like find money on my own, like do it the way that I did it at the very beginning. And being indie for me now, like I used to actually like frown upon it and be like, oh, it doesn't work, like because I knew, and at the time maybe it didn't, because the construct of the industry is if you're not with a label, that's your representation, and you can't really get radio if you're indie and all that stuff. But things are shifting so much now, and I think that a lot of people are just taking their power back, because a lot of us have been very hurt and burned by the way that the industry is set up, and I think that it does not value creators. It's very abusive toward creators, which again, it reflects the rest of the world and the way that things work. And it's just, we need to change these constructs, and we need to update things, because it's 2022.
Well, art's been devalued a lot. I mean, even just look at Spotify's been in the news a lot lately, but it's all streaming platforms, and like music just doesn't make a lot of money. I was actually with my therapist like this week, and I was telling her like it's kind of the equivalent of if you had 50 sessions with somebody and you only got paid when they like actually made a change in their life, like, and you have to still wake up every day with the same hustle, the same, I'm going to do my job great, I'm going to show up every day, hoping that person's going to make that change that's going to get you paid, because that's like, the core value that you offer. Like that's how music kind of is now, where we're having to kind of become business people in other senses to be able to, fund our lives and fund our art. And even though music is the soundtrack to people's lives, and how boring would life be without it, the music itself has become extremely devalued, I think.
Yeah, and my managers helped me a lot as well with just like owning my business, and her being like, because a lot of managers, I've had a lot of really bad experiences with managers, and it's been very much like I felt like I was working for them, and they were very condescending, and
Same.
Yeah, because I know, and my manager now, she is just, we're really close friends, and she values me and respects me, and I value her and respect her, and we understand that this is a partnership that we're doing, and I'm not trying to hide anything from her. She's not hiding anything from me. And she's taught, and she's really helps me to be like, this is your, like, what are we doing? She's always asking me, like, it's not about her doing a bunch of stuff for me. Like, you have to be very active as an artist, and I think it works because I love doing that stuff. I love being involved in every aspect that I can, and she's just, I think she is like a new example of what a manager-artist relationship can look like.
I you should meet my current manager. He's such an asshole. Just kidding. Just kidding. He's the best. But before him, like, kind of, most of my experiences were that, like, I would get off phone calls and not feel awesome about myself.
I would see a text from my manager or a call, and I would feel anxiety.
Anxious, yeah.
Now when my manager calls me, I'm like,
exactly.
Like, what are we going to talk about now?
This is the first time that I've felt that, like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Not that, I mean, I've worked with a lot of great people. I'm not at all dissing the people I've worked with, just some of them.
Yeah, there's some really horrible, abusive people. Yeah.
Some of you that maybe, aren't the nicest.
Yeah.
But it can be that weird power dynamic that, is just coming from their own insecurities, sometimes of not knowing what to do and feeling like they need to dominate, to take control, and
which is also a very toxic masculinity thing.
Toxic masculinity. Is this your first female manager?
Yeah.
That must be.
And she's from Denmark, so she literally grew up 2 hours from me when I was in Sweden, so it's a very special connection.
That's cool.
And she
really cool.
is a badass bitch. She lives in Brooklyn, like, so she's got the Scandi connection, but she's also like a badass bitch. Like, you don't fuck with her, and I love that. But she's also the kindest. Like, it's not.
Yeah, you've got to have both sides. I see Derek's very fiery, but when I say, all right, I need you to cool it off and understand this from my artist. I need wine as an artist for a second.
Right. Totally.
A friend of mine says you can drive the BMW for 5 minutes a day, which is the bitching, moaning, whining mobile, and then you have to come up with solutions. So I always be like, I'm driving the BMW right now.
Leave me alone.
I have adopted this phrase.
Yeah.
What are some things that you do to set yourself up for creative success if maybe you're not feeling the most creative that day? Like if you wake up and you're like, I have a session today and
I cancel it.
You cancel it?
Yeah. It doesn't happen very often, but I think that I think one of the things that I hate the most about not just the music industry, but just this world is hustle mentality, because it's not healthy. It's just not. And it's not about the amount of work that you're doing, it's about the quality of the work you're doing. And if there's times like me in cinematic, for example, like we are like 99.9% we're winning and we're killing the songs, but there's been a few times where it's just the energy isn't there and we're like, let's go eat. It's not, I think that you have to let go of the pressure, and if you're not feeling it creatively, then just don't do it that day. It's fine. Like just do something else because those days come. Absolutely. But honestly, like I walk into rooms all the time and I'm like, am I gonna be able to do this today? Like, am I gonna be able to write a song? And it just keeps happening.
Was one of the questions I was gonna ask you about it, because I just interviewed my mixer engineer. He's 10-time Grammy Award-winning mixer and producer, and we spoke a lot about imposter syndrome and how that's like. I asked him, I think, since he's kind of a tool that helps artists to be able to express themselves fully and musically. What is the biggest creative pitfall he sees amongst artists, and imposter syndrome was the biggest. And I never really thought about my own imposter syndrome until that conversation. And I was like, absolutely. Like if I have a two-way write, like I love three-way writes where I'm like with a producer building a track at the same time and with another writer. If I have a two-way write, sometimes I'll have extreme anxiety going in because I'll be like, if we don't vibe, like it's first time writes. I mean, if we don't vibe, like there's no one there to like, save me or like, help. And I think that's my own like, feeling like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not going to be able to like carry this session.
Right.
And, that rarely happens because, you can just be like, I don't know what's up. I'm just not feeling it today, or like the vibe's not there. And, I actually love booking like 2 days with people to start because sometimes it takes a second to get in each other's vibe and creative space. And, like my sex masturbation metaphor, like you got to get to know each other. But like usually sometimes the first song you write like is gold, and then they become like, sometimes there is that instant connection, and I've had that plenty of times. But I've also written with people where like our first session was, a little dicey, and then the more we got to know each other, it was like we found our flow. Yeah,
and it was actually a really good example. I just recently wrote with AJ McLean from Backstreet Boys, and we had a lot of days together, but it was only supposed to be, it was me and a person that one of my best friends, and frequently write with, Julia Ross, and we went into that session and we were only supposed to be there one day, and the first song that we wrote that day was whatever, but from day 2 to day 8 it was just fire every day. So I was so glad that we got that first day, because if that would have been the example, it wouldn't have been that great. But then we found that magic place, and it was a really beautiful energy of just like connecting as humans and just making good music. And he's just a very sweet person, and is very welcoming and warm, and he always from the very beginning was. And again, I approached him. And that makes you want to continue to try to find that magic. Yeah, and I approached it like, who are you as a human? And I saw right away that he was just a very caring human, and he's such an advocate for, like, he fucking loves gay people. And so I really loved that and felt that. And so like every time that we would bring in a writer, and if they were gay, he's like, yes, like the more gays. And that's really beautiful coming from, especially like somebody that has been in such an iconic band for gay people as well, because I mean it's pop, and we've loved that growing up. So and I'm sure that's lovely for you coming from Christian industry where you didn't feel that, to now being working with people who are like, please, more of you, more of you. It was lovely, and so that was a really good experience, and that really sometimes you need more than one day, for sure. I mean, there's certain songs that, like you said, they come in like 30 minutes, or like, they're fast writes, and then there's those songs that you wrestle with for like a week, and you're like, what is wrong with you? Like, I know you're good, like the fucking painful births. I mean, that's such a, we have, I have one right now that I'm writing with one of my co-writers, and usually like I get so mad if I can't, because usually like I'll write a song in 30 minutes, always. So like this one, we're just really struggling with the chorus right now, but I'm like, it's okay, because we have the melody, it's just the lyrics that we're struggling with. Sometimes they want you to work
for it a little.
And so she's doing her vocal today in like 5 hours, and so we just have to finish the chorus before then. But it's fine, and it's but those things happen. Sometimes it just takes a little bit longer.
The song, it's not out yet, but the song like people will be like, that's the most commercial of the songs on your album. I'm like, that song, like the writing of that song, it took probably a week for us to get it, partially because I knew it was great, and so I was like not accepting anything for it, like anyone's lyric suggestions, and I was like, not good enough, sorry, like we got it, it's not right yet, and like everyone was so annoyed with me, I'm sure, in that whole thing, and I was just like, I don't know what it's supposed to be yet, like it's gonna come to us, like we just gotta sit with it, and I don't know, I haven't written with those people again, but they're gonna, everyone loved the finished product, but it was like, that one was a struggle.
It was a struggle. Sometimes it is, and it's totally fine. It's like one of my biggest Christian songs. I wrote it over 3 months. Like I just didn't have time, so I just would write little sections, and then it became this really big song on Christian radio, and I was like, interesting. Because usually, like, it is the best songs that I have are the ones that are like 15 minutes. It's like,
I envy that.
And not everybody does that. Right, not everybody can do that. It's literally just being, because I've also accepted that when you release something, you can sit and be such a perfectionist about something, but you have to just release it. At some point, you just have to let it go.
3, like it's.
I'm a 2 with a wing of 3.
That's good. So you are a helper. That is your.
When I read the 2, it's like me to a T, everything.
When I read the 3, where it's basically like success or death, I would rather like if I can't have that, I would rather die. I'm like, yes, I identify.
And my big thing is like feeling loved and accepted. Like that's my biggest thing. Like rejection is my hardest struggle.
I'm so fascinated with the Enneagram. There's a producer here that I worked with who actually, he knew it so in and out that he could just look at you and be like, you're this, you're this, you're this. And he would make sessions based on people's numbers. And so he would be like, you're a 3, you're going to write best with 7s. And so he would put me in the room with 7s. And those sessions he used to pair were always
good,
amazing. Like he just knew personality types and how they would.
Me and my ex is a 6, and so we were opposites. Yeah, we like very opposites. And I remember reading hers, like, because they have like the whole thing about how to communicate with that number, and I was like, oh. And she was the same. She was like, oh.
There are certain people
so when I did this, that really hurt you, and it was.
I love it. I encourage everybody to kind of go a little bit down the rabbit hole of that, because there are certain people that I work with who I have a hard time with 8s, like especially 8 females, because they're challenging, and I am like,
8s unfortunately a lot of the times become very narcissistic or are very narcissistic.
Yeah, but in times of unhealth, they sting a little. And for someone like me who's so achievement-based, like, that can shut me down. But I have a lot of 8s in my life. I attract 8s. And I love them. They're some of the most brilliant people I know, because in their health, they're leaders, and they're
Manny
amazing.
Is an 8.
Yeah.
I remember sitting with Manny and his wife Angela at their house, and there was like a group of us, and we did the Enneagram things together. And it was very interesting. That was the first time I ever did it. And he was like, I'm an 8, like, but he's also like the kindest. That. He's such a kind and supportive person.
But when I read like how 3s and 8s communicate, I was like, oh, and I shifted the way that we both shifted the way that we communicated, and our work relationship has been so much smoother. Derek's actually an 8, and like the work dynamic part, it can be like, you can both get in the achiever mindset so much that like. It basically is that all the time, and we definitely have to like keep ourselves in check to be like, okay, personal time, like we're cutting off, it's like we're not talking about it anymore, or we will just work 24 hours a day.
Yeah, totally.
And that can come in handy, like it can be beautiful sometimes, but like
but it's also important, it's important to take the time. It is. And it's so funny, most people in my life are very like, astrology, so it's always like, oh, you're a Taurus. But and there are some things with Taurus that I am, and that are very real to me, but I also feel like I like the Enneagram because it's like based off of real questions.
Yeah.
And I think that the hard thing is though that you also have to be very self-aware doing that test. And I think a lot of people answer based on who they want to be rather than who they are. And that was a real realization for me. Like even the negative things, you have to just be like, this is exactly what I would do. That's why I never became a Gryffindor. I'm always a Hufflepuff, because I'm being honest. Because when it says like questions like, oh, like, somebody's in danger in the forbidden forest, what do you do? And people are like, I'm going to run in and save them. And that's not what I would do, because I know that I would die too. So I'm like, I need them to be saved. So I would go get somebody who I knew could help them. And,
That's
you know,
good.
so I'm still helping them, but I know that I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm like, my wand's not strong enough. So like, let me go get somebody, you know, I'm going to get Miss McGonagall. She'll take care of it.
That's hilarious. I love that metaphor. What is your relationship with social media? Do you like it? Is it a place of creativity for you? Does it cause burnout for you sometimes? Yeah.
I think it used to. When you allow the toxic part of it to take hold of you, it's really bad. But when you allow because I'm very grateful for it, because even now with stuff going on with the war and stuff, like even 10, 15 years ago, like people wouldn't know what was going on, and now we can all kind of see everything going on in the world and going, that's not okay, or like we need to save this or whatever, and it's going to change a lot of things. And I also met my boyfriend on social media, so obviously like I would have never connected. He lives in Africa, so it's like it's crazy to me.
He lives in Africa? What?
Yeah, I know.
Is he coming here?
Yeah. But so he's going to come visit in October, but I went to visit him in
Africa.
January.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it was a really, really beautiful, it's just, I'm not going to say where he's from, because it's not okay to be gay there, so I don't want to.
But you, so you met on social media.
We met, he popped up on my Explore page on Instagram.
Shut up.
And I just commented on one of his photos, and I was like, oh, you're so handsome. And then he messaged me, and
Sliding into the DMs works.
It did! Yeah, so we've spoken every day since then, and I went to visit him in January, and
was that the only time that y'all have been in
that's the only time that we've been physically in person, yeah. But it was just really beautiful, and it was hard. It's really hard to explain love, because it really hasn't been this, like, I think that people are searching for this, like, oh my god, like I'm just crazy in love and da. And the thing is, I am, but it's not like that. I would rather be secure in love.
Grounded.
I saw a meme about that, like. When I hugged him the first time, I just felt home and I felt safe. Were you nervous to? I honestly wasn't, because we had talked so much, we had FaceTime so much, so I was just like, I know who this man is, and there's always a risk, but I'm like, if he's acting, then he deserves every award, but he's not. And so like when I met him and I just hugged him that first time, I was like, oh, okay,
this is it.
This feels really great, and even like that mentality, like this is it. I don't marry myself to outcomes.
But I'm more assuming that's the feeling.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was, and so I was like, okay, so maybe it's more about choosing a partner. You know, it's not about these flighty emotions all the time, because it goes up and down, and so it's more about we have the same outlook. We want the same things out of life, and we view so many things similarly. And he's just very, he's so even-tempered, and that is something that I really need, because I'm a pretty even-tempered person as well.
You're also nervous.
But with the wrong person who really pushes me negatively, it can make me very anxious. And I just promised myself that whatever next relationship that I'm going to be in, I just want it to be, I want to be happy, and I want to be calm.
I had a really similar experience, because I definitely tend towards anxious attachment.
Yeah.
If someone's giving me those, which I didn't even know until I was out of all of that, and then like, oh, that's not how things are supposed to feel, and like I can move into people pleaser mode really quickly. And I had a similar experience with my relationship now. Is we were best friends over social media for 2 years, and we talked all the time every day, and it was like cultivating such a real friendship where I was like, I felt so understood, like that was the person that I went to for everything, and like we just had this closeness. And then when we finally did come together, it was like, oh yeah, like this is how things are supposed to feel, like there's no anxiety here. I don't feel the need to like, you know, perform extra just to like, you know, receive that love and attention. Like I can just be myself. And I think when you really develop that friendship first, it's like when you're separated, because we were separated many states away, like it's kind of cool. Like
it is. And it was really interesting, because I knew him when I met him, but it's such a different thing to be in person. And I knew that I needed to, because a lot of people were like, oh, you don't know anything about him, and like you're putting yourself in danger and all this stuff. And I'm like, I knew from the beginning that who he was, his heart.
You're an energy person, and you can feel that. You can
absolutely.
feel that. I usually know within like the first 5 seconds of meeting
Same.
somebody if I vibe with them or if we're not going to be friends.
Same.
Like
yeah.
it's just a thing.
It's a
you
thing.
can still feel that through the internet, like because I think there's that connected spiritual world, like whatever this is, that like our energies are all tied into everything, to every single thing. Like you can feel that.
And I remember I was very like when I was with him, I was very observant of how he treated other people. And every Uber driver that we got in the car with, within 5-10 seconds, they were like laughing, and like you could see that the driver became comfortable because he's so kind and so funny and loving. And you know, we ran into this really cool Russian couple, and they, you know, he's like, let's go eat together, and like I just and literally I'm just like, I was just swooning, because like that is what I really love, and I love to see that in him. And we were sitting at a Starbucks, and there was like this 5-year-old girl came up, and his interaction with her, I was just like, because my daughter is 5, and so it was just he's one of those like 1 in a billion people that you end up connecting with. And I've told him a million times, like, whatever energy he's been putting out into the world, this is his time now. And you know, he lives in a place where he has to completely hide who he is for fear of imprisonment or even death, and that's really, really scary. And he deserves freedom, and he deserves to and the fact that he is the person that he is, living under those constraints, imagine who he's going to be when he has freedom and fully can love himself.
You're going to be a great guide for him.
I hope. I mean, and that's the thing too, it makes me, so many people from foreign countries come here and get married to people, and the person from America is very abusive and awful, and I'm really happy that I know who I am, and that I know that he is coming into a situation where he's going to be loved. And I already, like, my love for him is so deep, and I don't really know how to explain it other than that. I just knew when I was there too, like, we had actually a Brooke Fraser lyric going back to, it's very much like, she says in one of her songs called The Thief, she says, it is as if I knew you before we spoke. Do our hearts know something we don't? Conspiring, converging without giving us any say. And I feel like that's what it is. It's like we have this silent, like, we just know that we're partners, and we know that we love each other, and that we want to do life together. And again, I don't marry myself to outcomes. So it's like, if we get the rest of our lives together, amazing. If we get 5 years that are amazing, great. Because things shift sometimes, and that's okay. And so I think that I am just really trying to be present in the now and enjoy every moment with him that I have, and just love him the best that I can. And you know,
one of the happiness principles we talked about the other day is non-attachment, which shows up in, you know, lots of things, but it's the hardest to not attach to the outcomes. But when you can just live in the present moment, you usually get better outcomes, because you're not putting so much pressure on the result.
And I always try to think too, when I say things even to him, like things that are very like, you know, like I'll always this and this. So whenever I say things like that, because even if we're not together, like I always say, like, I'll always be here for you, or like I'll always be here. And that's the truth, because regardless if we're together or not, he is a person that for the rest of my life I will value. Even if bad things happen, I think that he is you just connect with certain people. It's almost like Twilight imprinting.
Yeah.
You imprint on certain people, and I have.
Well, I don't think anyone's connection with you ever fully goes away. The volume just gets turned down.
Exactly. Yeah. And so even I'm very grateful too because I mean, me and my ex-wife, we did life together for 11 years. It's a long time, and I'm very proud of who the woman she's becoming, and her finding herself as well. And because both of us were blocked in that marriage of finding who we really were and understanding our purpose in this life and together. And so I think that in general, I'm just I feel very at peace with everything. That like I wake up in the morning, and I used to wake up with severe anxiety every morning for years.
There's hope.
There is hope.
I feel you.
Yeah.
I didn't even know how anxious I used to live until it was gone, and I was like, there was a low hum of anxiety for me, I think, all the freaking time.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting. If someone gave you a box of everything you'd ever lost, what would you look for?
Oh my gosh. Of everything I've ever lost. You know, the box would be empty. Because I think loss is a part of life, and I think that there's nothing that I feel like I've lost, even if it's death. I feel like we're on the path that we're supposed to be on, and it's kind of funny, I view life kind of like as a choose your own adventure, almost like a video, like an open world video game. Like every single moment of time, we have a choice of what we can do. Like right now, I could decide to just flip this table, but every moment we have a choice to decide what we're gonna do and this path. And I feel like I love thinking about like quantum physics and things and like different dimensions and like, you know, this is a path. There's a million paths that could happen right now. And I think what a powerful moment that we have the choice to whatever path we lead us to. And if that path leads to something that we weren't expecting, that's just a part of it. So I honestly don't, there's nothing that I regret, or there's nothing that I feel I regret. I mean, if I regret anything, I don't.
You wouldn't change
it. I wouldn't change it.
Here.
Exactly. And I don't. I've hurt people in the past, and I don't like that. But I also think that hurting and also hurting other people, that also is a part of figuring out.
Growth.
Yeah.
I had a very similar answer to that question, where I was like, I wouldn't change a single thing that, you know, has happened to me, because then I wouldn't be here, even though if it was hard or shitty or you know, terrible. My only thing I would look for is this one pair of black shorts that I lost, and I really wish I knew where they went. But
no, I can't even, like, I'm really trying to like dig if there's something that I feel like I mean, there really just isn't.
I like that answer.
Yeah, even going, I mean, my marriage, everything, like, many people could have been like, you would have spared yourself so much pain if you just would have, both of us, but I'm so proud, she wouldn't be the person that she is either. And I think we both realized that. Yeah, we have a daughter, exactly. And she is the love of my life. I don't even know how I could love anyone more than her. And that, like, and when she was first born, I loved her, but it was like, it really, the last 2 or 3 years, like, when they start, when she can really, like, you know, like, now, you know, I have her every 2 weeks, and, you know, we have this I pick her up from school, and then I sit, you know, sometimes I play, like, video games, and then she'll sit and play a game on the phone, and she'll just sit next to me, and she'll just put her, you know, head on my shoulder, and she keeps saying, like, I love you so much, and you're my best friend, and like being told that from your 5-year-old is just like, oh. So I think the only anxiety that I really have left in my life is like over her. Like, I just want her to be okay and safe. And so as a parent, you're just like, oh, like, but you also like have to let her live her life. So that's my biggest thing. But yeah, I really don't.
Amazing.
I don't think I have regrets.
Well, thank you so much for being here
today.
Thank you
so much for having me. This was a lovely conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
guys. All the way to the end. Thanks for hanging with us.